Hi there, this is Solitary Ronan from Solitary Ronan Films, and welcome to another favourite 25 films of the decades. Today we're talking about the 80s, which is a fairly good decade for cinema, especially English language cinema, and this English language probably dominates this list the most, but there are some non-English language cinema. But before I start, I want to give a shout out to Steve 4 Films, as in the number 4, who has done a response to my A to Z villains video, and he contributes to this channel through comments. So I'm going to leave a link to his channel where hopefully you'll go and have a look at some of his videos and subscribe. He does basically film montage lists and using video clips, and far better to look at than my channel. He perfectly edits film clips, so he has his own favourite films of decades, and as I said, he did a nice response video to my A to Z of villains. So that's Steve 4 Films, but as I said, I'll leave a description. I'll leave a link in the description box, so hopefully you can go and check out his channel, enjoy his videos and subscribe to his channel. So again, this is my favourite 25 films of the 80s, not what I think are the greatest films of the 80s, even though obviously some of them are the greatest films of the 80s, in my opinion. Again, my opinion is not fact. Now, proving that this is my favourite rather than the greatest list of the 80s, I had to include Naked Gun. This is just a film that I've seen so many times. Yes, the humour is not for everyone. This is actually the 4K and Blu-ray. Yes, I have the Naked Gun in 4K. You can see O.J. Simpson in all his glory. But, I mean, Leslie Nielsen is just absolutely perfect in these films. And when you consider, since Leslie Nielsen died, the world has become a much worse place. So that's Leslie Nielsen's importance, not just for his acting. And number 24 is a film that's about to get 4K, from Arrow, one of the greatest British films of all time. Another great British film is in this list as well. This is John Mackenzie's The Long Good Friday, with Bob Hoskins, arguably Bob Hoskins' finest work. An early appearance by Pierce Brosnan. Helen Mirren is it's amazing in this film. Has one of the greatest endings of all time, brilliantly played by Bob Hoskins. His attitude to the mafia is hilarious. He's almost like a little pit bull, and he's just absolutely wonderful. It's one of those career-defining performances. Yes, the score is a little bit dated now, but as I said, it's getting a 4K soon, and it's one of Bob Hoskins' seminal performances. Now, number 23, this is one that probably crosses the line between favourite and best. This is a film that's utterly amazing. You know, would I watch it once a month? Probably not. was introduced to this film by the wonderful Daisuke Beppu. And this is The Emperor's Naked Army Marches On by Kazuo Hara. This is just... it's kind of indescribable, but I'll go on and try and describe it. The documentary follows a World War II veteran, Kenzo Okazaki, who has a beef with the Japanese government and the emperor, and he goes about town with slogans in a van and loudspeakers, because he wants the government to face up to things that happened in the Pacific. And then as the film slowly unfolds, we actually find out some of the things that Okazaki feels strongly about. And the film then enters into a very strange situation. We as the audience and the filmmaker, there's a complicity. It's like, should we be watching this? Should the filmmaker stop what's going on? Should the filmmaker intervene? It has that kind of man bites dog, that was fictional, of all of a sudden feeling complicit in what you're watching. It's just incredible. It's one of those films that you never forget once you've seen it, and you immediately tell people that you have to see this film. There's something completely different from that, from 1982, and this is Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. This is a lovely set on DVD. It even has like a lenticular thing. And this is a 4-disc set, which has, I think, 5 different versions of the film. Obviously, famously, it took Ridley Scott some time to actually get the proper version together. Obviously, the cinematic theatrical release had a voiceover, and it wasn't successful when it came out, and then he tinkered with it. It's actually a 5-disc set with 4 cuts. There's an assembly cut as well, the director's cut. This was before the final cut. For me, it's Ridley Scott's best film. I know there's not too much competition, really. Harrison Ford's finest 2 hours, even though he hated making it. Emmett Walsh, wonderful as usual. Rutger Hauer, who in the film dies in 2019, and he died in 2019. Does that actually prove that Rutger Hauer was in actual fact a replicant himself? Perhaps. But it's just about mortality. It's one of the best films about mortality. And it has a beautiful Vangelis score. Number 21, a filmmaker that will appear more than once. It's Cronenberg's The Dead Zone, with, of course, Christopher Walken. I have to have Christopher Walken in there somewhere. This is the imprint, which has lots and lots and lots of lovely extras. There's a commentary with Stephen Jones and Kim Newman. There's a 2021 interview with cinematographer Mark Irwin and music producer James Guthrie. There's an interview with composer discussing Michael Kamen's score. There's a documentary featuring interviews about adapting Stephen King, which is with Mark Lester, Lewis Teague, Mick Garris, Tom McLaughlin, and others from 2021. Frank Dodd and the Cujo Connection, visual essay by Lee Gambin from 2021. And there's 4 featurettes, and there's vintage interviews with Cronenberg, Deborah Hill, Martin Sheen, and there's also an interview with Stephen King. So this was kind of Cronenberg doing a studio picture, trying to tell everybody, look, see, I'm normal, I can just do a Stephen King adaptation. But it's fantastic. Now, obviously, if it didn't have Christopher Walken, maybe I would think differently of it. But Martin Sheen is wonderful. Herbert Lom, it's just absolutely fantastic. Next, number 20. This is also from 1982, but never mentioned when people talk about how great 1982 was as far as American cinema. This was a film I wasn't familiar about. This is a film to me that sums up what the Criterion Collection should be and what the Criterion Collection does best. When I first saw this, it absolutely blew me away, and I've grown to absolutely love it. I think I've seen it about 5 times since. This is The Ballad of Gregorio Cortez, starring Edward James Olmos, who of course is in Blade Runner as well. Directed by Robert M. Young. This is absolutely beautiful. It has the same look of a film that's coming up later, that kind of old photographs look, based on a true story. This literally is about mistranslation, not being able to talk to each other, miscommunication, and how that can lead to tragic events. About a Mexican farmer, or Mexican American farmer, who ended up being on this huge manhunt, basically just for a mistranslated sentence that leads to terrible consequences. It's a character actor's absolute dream. The cast is just character actor after character actor, really getting a chance to show off how good they are. James Gammon and lots of other familiar faces. One of the biggest kind of Hispanic Chicano films ever, and it's just absolutely beautiful. An underdog story, a film that's still relevant today when we're all trying to understand each other, even though we have different cultures and different languages, but we're pretty much the same underneath. But The Ballad of Gregorio Cortez is just amazing. And again, it's never brought up when you see people doing their Criterion sale hauls, and the Barnes and Noble sales. You never see anybody picking up The Ballad of Gregorio Cortez, but it's such an important American film that people should start picking up if they haven't already, which they haven't. Next, this filmmaker appeared in the 70s list, and he's made the 80s. This is actually coming out in the UK. This is a Severin release of Jodorowsky's Santa Sangre. This is the 4-disc version, the 4K, a couple of Blu-rays and the soundtrack as well. I think it's a pared down edition that's coming to the UK. This is Jodorowsky at his most narratively tight film, about this poor young man who is in an asylum because he's been through stuff involving his parents, and he gets out and things go awry. It's just absolutely beautiful, gorgeous cinematography, gorgeous colours and images as you'd expect from Jodorowsky. Don't worry, it's not neutered Jodorowsky, even though he's narratively actually following a story as close as he's ever done. It's moving. You know, there's scenes that will make you laugh and cry and vomit, but it's just absolutely incredible. From 1989, Santa Sangre, absolutely wonderful. Another film that blew me away the first time I saw it, hugely influential. This is also from 1989, and this is John Woo's The Killer. In actual fact, I saw Hard Boiled in the cinema first, and then went back and saw The Killer. Chow Yun Fat goodness. Yeah, Bullet Valley. This is, I think, perhaps not as bonkers as Hard Boiled. For the start, it doesn't have Anthony Wong in it. But this is the superior one, I think. Chow Yun Fat's great performance. Danny Lee as the cop, trying to stop him, but also loving him as well. It's John Woo, of course. It's homoerotic between the two men. It always is. The women just get kissed in the foreheads, but the men flash their guns at each other. It's wonderful. Next, from 1983, a French film. This is Finally Sunday by Truffaut. I need to watch a lot of Truffaut again, but this might be my favourite Truffaut. I'm a huge fan of Fanny Ardant and Jean-Louis Trintignant, and both of them are in this, strangely enough. It's a amateur detective film where these two characters want to uncover a murder that's committed, and Jean-Louis Trintignant's the main suspect. It's just playful, it's hilarious, it's black and white, shot beautifully. The two leads are absolutely terrific, and Fanny Ardant is just spectacular in it. It will put a smile on your face if you're in that sort of mood. At number 16 from 1988, a film that won't put a smile on your face, Georges Slouzier's The Vanishing. Don't really need to talk about this too much. This is a sociopath film that is not flashy. Doesn't have huge set pieces. You know, the heartbeat of the film is very low. You know, it's not an adrenaline filled fuel ride. But it packs such a wallop because it is shot like a documentary. There's no flashy visuals. And again, it has one of the greatest endings of all time. From 1988, an absolutely stunning film. Again, one of those films that the first time you see it, you'll never forget that first time you see it. Next, it's a film that's part of this set. I haven't included this set on the list because strictly it was TV, the same way I didn't include Twin Peaks: The Return. This is a short film about killing from Krzysztof Kieślowski, which is included in this Criterion release of Decalogue, but I haven't included Decalogue because this would probably be number 1 or 2, but because it's TV and it's 10 little films themselves, I haven't included Decalogue in this list. But I'm going to include a short film about killing. I could also put short film about love, but short film about killing is just one of the greatest statements on capital punishment. And this is one of the advantages that the Decalogue Criterion edition has over the Arrow Academy one, even though I think overall the Arrow Academy one's probably slightly better than the Criterion. The Criterion does have both short film about love and a short film about killing included in the set. Just absolutely brutal and unflinching and honest Young man kills a taxi driver, state kills young man. Enjoy. Next, there's been lots of road movies and road comedies about mismatched characters, obviously hating each other, and then through adventures, kind of having respect for each other, or if it's a man and a woman, end up falling in love, because that's what happens when you go through things like that. But this is one of the best, well, and one of my favourites. This is Midnight Run by Martin Brest. This is Shout Select. You can now get it in 4K with Shout Select. But it's not a particularly stunning visual film, so I'm not really sure it's necessary to have a 4K of it. This is one of De Niro's finest performances, and his best comedy performance. It's more of a realistic comedy rather than, written like a comedy. That doesn't make any sense. Charles Grodin is absolutely perfect. It's his finest work by a country mile, which, as we know, is a mile and a half. Yaphet Kotto is brilliant. John Ashton, Dennis Farina as the bad guy is just like coldly chilling. He's certainly not playing it as a comedy. Great road movie, great buddy movie. Again, Yaphet Kotto, the supporting cast is absolutely perfect. Really sweary. I remember seeing it on the BBC when it first came out back in the day when the BBC didn't have profanity on their channel, so there was lots of overdubs of "forget you" and "forget this." But so much fun. 1987, another film that's about to get 4K. Again, not sure there's any need to have a 4K of this. It's Withnail and I, Bruce Robinson's finest work, based on his own personal experience. He's never done anything better. Richard E. Grant has been playing the same character pretty much his entire career. One of the funniest films ever made, even though there's absolutely no jokes in it. Just about perfect. It has a heart, so the ending's actually quite moving. But just one of the most quotable films of all time. One of the greatest British films of all time as well. Just absolutely fantastic. Number 12, again, proving that this is my favourites list and not the best of. From 1985, this is Clue. And I did get this on 4K. This is the Shout Select 4K, which has some lovely new extras. Strange enough, it's a 4K, and the Blu-ray's got a new 4K scan as well. And there's a great interview with Jonathan Lynn, who kind of just fell into directing the film. There's an interview with the associate producer. There's an interview with the music historian about the score. Famously, this came out in theatres with just one of the four endings. Depending where you were, that was the ending you saw. But then in the home video market, they put all the endings in, which just adds to the film. I mean, I've loved this ever since I saw it, but it's only really the last couple of years that people are actually appreciating it for what it is, which is a masterpiece. Again, a brilliant cast. Tim Curry, outside of Frankenfurter, this is probably his finest work. Eileen Brennan, Madeline Kahn, Christopher Lloyd, Michael McKean, Martin Mull, Leslie Ann Warren even. It's just, I could watch this every day of the week. It's just so good, but obviously other people would call it a load of rubbish. Proving that cinema is a smorgasbord of taste and styles. We go from Clue to 1983, and L'Argent by Bresson. I mean, Bresson and Clue make a wonderful double bill. Watching this again when this Blu-ray came out, it's just so good. It's one of his films that I would say is just about perfect. It's a simple tale of a young man who passes a forged note, and then the domino effect of that. It sounds contrived, but it's not. Everything just happens naturally and believably until the powerhouse ending. This is just an absolute stunner. One of Bresson's best, and obviously that's saying something. Style, Anti-Style and Influence from 2022 is a 22-minute on-stage discussion between Jeff Andrew, Jonathan Horrigan and Nazreen Mooney-Kabir on the films of Bresson, which is fantastic. First and Last from 2022, which is 9 minutes long. Film scholar Jonathan Horrigan, former assistant to Robert Bresson, compares the director's first feature, Les Anges du Pêche, with his last L'Argent. The Root of All Evil from 2022, 19 minutes. Writer Michael Brook considers Bresson's late masterpiece in this newly commissioned video essay. Jonathan Horrigan on L'Argent 2007, 27 minutes, audio only, an audio introduction to the film. And Value for Money from 1970, 22 minutes. David Bless, dreamlike experimental short film featuring Quentin Crisp visualises coin-operated connections between money and religion, and a theatrical trailer. Just another flat masterpiece by Bresson. And from Bresson to Catano's debut, Violent Cop. Now, is this Catano's best film? Probably not, but again, this is favourites rather than best. I just remember seeing this for the first time. I just love the nihilism of it. Just the brutality. Again, that Catano editing style, the Catano black humour. The ending's wonderful and nihilistic and downbeat and depressing, and I just absolutely love it. We just love Catano's shambling walk, just the inevitability of it. It's just tremendous. From 1988, Dead Ringers, Cronenberg's back at it. One of the great performances by brothers, Jeremy and Jeff Irons. Again, just such a precise film by Cronenberg. Everything is just like crystal clear. Great support by Genevieve Bujold as the woman caught between the two twins. Stylish. Just a beautiful film. I know people have difficulty saying that about Cronenberg films, but this is one of his most beautiful films. Yeah, this is a 2-disc Shout Factory with 2 different ratios of the film. One is a 1.78 to 1 and the other is a 1.66 to 1 version. Unfortunately, it's not Cronenberg commentary. There is a commentary by William Beard, the author of Artist as Monster, the cinema of David Cronenberg, but there is a commentary with Jeremy Irons, which is worth the price of admission. And then there's new interviews with Stephen Lack, Heidi von Palesk and DOP Peter Krzyzewski, and special effects artist Gordon Smith, and there's vintage interviews. It's a wonderful package. It is a bit disappointing in the UK. There's just a kind of bog standard Region B release, but this release is absolutely wonderful by Shout Factory. I mean, all Cronenberg films should get a 4K, but Dead Ringers should get a 4K for those lovely red surgical gowns. Number 8 even. This is Spinal Tap. A film that I must have watched, I don't know, 40 times. Because of the type of music that I'm mainly into. There's so many in-jokes about metal and hard rock in here. The fact there's about an extra hour of footage that didn't make it into the film that's almost just as good as the film. The film could have easily been like a 2.5 hour magnus opus. So many phrases that I still use. There's a thin line between stupid and clever. So many wonderful set pieces. But again, the genius of Spinal Tap is the audience were not just laughing at these guys, we still like them, we still root for them even though they're idiots. There's no condescension towards them. We're not laughing at them just because they're idiots. There's still a warmth that we give these guys. We still love them even though they don't have any self-awareness whatsoever. Spinal Tap is one of those films that's been with me for longer than I can even remember. At number 7, another film that's about to get 4K. David Lynch's Blue Velvet. Not much needs to be said. Who knows, if Dune had been a massive success, we might never have got Blue Velvet. But this was Lynch cleansing his palate of Dune, going back to what he does best, or what he knows. It's just one of the greatest films of all time, let alone the 60s. Career best performances by Dennis Hopper, Isabella Rossellini, probably Kyle MacLachlan as well, Laura Dern. Again, probably my favourite line, and it is, "That's a human ear, alright." Just scary, lovely, colourful, beautiful. Another amazing score by Angelo Badalamenti. Again, the world certainly has become a worse place without Angelo Badalamenti, but we'll always have his music. Just there's not much you can say about Blue Velvet that hasn't already been said by people who know far much more than I do. At number 6, you all knew it was going to be here at somewhere. It's Mate Wan by John Sayles. Of course it's Mate Wan by John Sayles. Now in 3 Blu-ray editions. This is the French Blu-ray edition, which has a wonderful 63-minute interview with Sayles, and a 26-minute interview with Maggie Renzi, and it has the Sayles-Wexler commentary. So even if you've got the other editions, go out and buy this one as well, so we can get more Sayles. At number 5, number 5, from 1985, one of Roger Deakins' favourite films to watch. There was always a rumour this was coming to Criterion, and when it finally did, it's understandable that Criterion actually made the disc Region A and Region B. It's the phenomenal Come and See, which for me is probably in the top 10 greatest films ever made. So finally to get it in Blu-ray is just phenomenal. Alan Klimoff's last film, because after you've made Come and See, there's not much point in making anything else. The actor who plays Floria, Alexei Kravchenko, it's just one of the greatest performances of all time as he ages before our eyes as this young kid who's all excited about war and playing soldiers, and then by the end he's an old man, even though not that much time has actually passed during the rendition of the film. Absolutely brutal, doesn't go for the heroic jingoistic aspect of war, the weapon fetishization and hero worship that most war films do. This is a horror film. Yeah, anybody who watches this film and feels compelled to think war's an adventure and war's exciting and thrilling, probably needs thrown into the sea. Yeah, it's just absolutely brutal and horrific, as war should be, and just those images. Yeah, again, it's not a film that you watch every month, but the images from it stick with you for the rest of your life. The things you see in the film, the corner of the character's eye, are just absolutely devastating. As I say, there is an interview with Roger Deakins where he says he does watch this every now and again just to get, to clean his palette of cinematography and just watch these images again. Not necessarily a film you go, it's Saturday night, it's come and see time. But just an absolute phenomenal piece of art. Number 4, perhaps some people might think this is surprisingly low on my list. From 1986, it's Michael Mann's Manhunter. Just one of the greatest crime films, or films in general. Obviously, the great screen performances of Hannibal Lecter by Brian Cox. Dennis Farina is brilliant. Stephen Lang. Tom Noonan as the Tooth Fairy is brilliant. Kim Greist, who was big for a couple of years. Joan Allen, which might have been her first film. William Peterson's never been better. As Will Graham, who gets into the mind of serial killers. This is allegedly getting a 4K. Again, don't bother with the theatrical version. Shout Factory's got theatrical and the director's cut. Go for the director's cut, even though that's still not the best version, because I have on disc the European video version, which for me is the definitive cut. It doesn't have the 2 extra scenes that the director's cut has that really don't add anything and actually slows the pace of the film down. The theatrical cut butchers a couple of dialogue scenes and misses some footage out of other scenes. The director's cut is the best you can get in high definition, but even on this, there's some standard definition inserts. We desperately need a 4K with all 3 versions, but just, the feeling of dread, the feeling of threat. Brian Cox plays Hannibal Lecter, as a sociopath, not as a pantomime dame, and it's all the better for that. Next, from 1980, I've said it before and I'll say it again, this might be the greatest documentary of all time. It's Flash Gordon by Mike Hodges, which shows life on Mongo under the strict fascist regime of Ming the Merciless. An NFL quarterback, Flash Gordon, goes to sort them out with the help of Heinz Zarkov, formerly of NASA, and Dale Arden. It's got a great soundtrack by Queen. Brian Blessed, Max von Sydow as Ming, is the greatest villain of all time if you don't count an animated tiger. Timothy Dalton gives a wonderful mustachioed, green-gloved performance. Peter Wingard as Clytus. I said Clytus. It's just one of the greatest henchmen of all time. Produced by Dino De Laurentiis, who loves the colour red. That's why red's everywhere. Was going to be directed by Nicholas Roeg. That would have been an interesting film to see. But again, the way Mike Hodges puts this together, again, Hodges is famous for saying he hates science fiction, he hated Star Wars, and that's why this is so gritty as a depiction of life under Ming. So at number 2 from 1980 is a film I've talked about so much in this channel, and it still doesn't have a Blu-ray. It's still one of the ones on films that should get a Blu-ray list that hasn't got a Blu-ray. We're getting there. We're certainly, striking them off that list. But this is one that's still there. Directed by Alain Rennie, who at some point I'll do a video series on. At some point. A director who made all sorts of films. But this one, strangely enough, a link to Flash Gordon, because the first time I saw it, it was on film 4. And it had an intro by Mike Hodges, director of Flash Gordon. And it's My American Uncle with Gerard Depardieu, Nicole Garcia, Roger Pierre, with the participation of Professor Henri Laborit. This is a film about us. This is a film about people. If you think you're unique and special and there's only one of you, watch My American Uncle, Mon Oncle d'Amérique, and you'll see you're not unique or special. You're just performing behaviour that everybody else does. So it follows René, played by Gerard Depardieu, Pierre, played by Roger Pierre, and Janine, played by Nicole Garcia, who are going through kind of stressful life choices, and we see how they react. Nothing special perhaps, but then Professor Henri Laborit is cut in every now and again to give his scientific opinion on what's happening with these characters. It's perhaps a Marmite film. You might love it or hate it, but it's so good. And then the introduction of a device later on in the film, again, you're either going to like that or hate it, but I just absolutely adored it. If you get by the first perhaps 10 minutes, which is just like a series of all these images and the professor using lots of big words, it kind of settles down and then it becomes funny. It just flows, and it's just such a great film. Because again, we are all the same, we go through the same problems, we go through the same issues, and it's a film for the people who think they're different and they're above that and they're unique and special, and it's like, you're not. It's one of the few films that makes you think about events in your life and how you dealt with them, how you could have dealt with them differently, or could you have dealt with them differently, or is it just nature? Is it flight or fight? Is it nurture nature? It's just such a great film, such an intelligent film, but still on the playful side. It's just one of Rennie's masterpieces. And again, hopefully one day, I mean, this is an Arrow Films DVD. This is the kind of film that Arrow Academy would have released in Blu-ray if they were still around. So if Radiance are watching, please release this, or Criterion. Again, it's from Alain Rennie, so it's not as if it's from a filmmaker nobody's heard of. Just such a great film. And number 1 is probably predictable, completely mainstream. Again, another one from 1982 that failed miserably. That's obviously The Thing. In the running for my most watched film. Perhaps Good, Bad and Ugly might actually have that title, I'm not quite sure. The Third Man. Just a perfect film, apart from showing something pre-title sequence that I probably wouldn't have showed. But a template film of how to get people isolated, throw something nasty at them, how to deal with an ensemble cast, how to simply shoot them, frame them, compose that frame with multiple people. It's a clinic in that. People talk about there's nothing to the characters, they're all paper thin. I would disagree with that, because their characters are built through their actions, not their words. So, for example, when Bennings, after he's been shot in the early part of the film, he asks Knowles to turn the music down, and Knowles just pretends to put his music down. Superstition by Stevie Wonder. That's the first place I'd heard that. So you get the relationships between the characters without lots of expositional dialogue. You know the dynamic between the characters and what these guys are like without having expositional dialogue, and I think that's what people miss. So I would argue the characters are built, they're all their own person. The film never stops. The sense of dread, paranoia, and as I've said quite a lot in these videos, one of the greatest endings of all time. They did shoot another ending, but thankfully that never made it into the final cut. Great performances. Keith David in his first film's absolutely brilliant. And it also has one of the greatest making of documentaries as well. And there's actually a new one, a relatively newer one, that's available as well. Because Keith David said after this, he expected, his phone to keep ringing, and apparently it was about a year before he got another film role, because obviously the thing bombed. The critics all hated it. But the thing is, now, who goes on and on about how great E.T. is now, compared with how great the thing is? Yes, I do have a thing about the thing, but it is with good reason. It is a template film. It's how to do ensemble casts right, in one location, and how to build tension and paranoia. So thanks very much for watching once again. Appreciate the support, and please let me know your favourite films of the 80s. 25 of them, 50 of them, 3 of them, it's entirely up to you. And hopefully you'll join me again for the next one, which is the 60s, because I started this with the 70s. So I've done that one. You can check that out on the playlist on the channel. So the next one is the 60s. So we'll see what that looks like. So again, thanks very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And hopefully, as I said, you'll join me for the 1960s, which was one of the few decades that was before my time. So this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell.